Hi everyone, I'm Lorraine from Simply English Edinburgh. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to have a little chat with you about how to learn vocabulary in a more efficient way. And this is coming from myself, who I have learned 3 different languages over the course of my life so far. Who knows, I might learn more. And obviously over the last 10 years I have been teaching English as a foreign language. I've worked with thousands of students all over the world. I've been very lucky in that. Different types of learners as well. So I think I have quite a lot of advice which I can give to you today in this video. And the languages which I have learned are, I started at primary school at the age of 5 learning Gaelic or Irish. This is completely different language to English. I'm not actually from an Irish speaking area in Ireland. Therefore, at home with my family, we always spoke English at home, and I learned Irish at school. At the age of 10, so still at primary school, I started learning German. And then when I moved to university at 19 years old, I started to learn Spanish. And the reason why I'm giving you these ages is because I think that's quite relevant in some of the points that I'm going to make today. So yeah, grab a cup of tea, coffee, and let's get started. So the first point I would like to make is that it is crucial to prioritise the language which you need to know. And what I mean by that is look around at your environment, like your job setting, perhaps your hobbies, your interests, and see if there are any gaps in your knowledge in these areas. When I was 23, when I had finished my degree in language education, I moved to Valencia to teach English as a foreign language. And I remember having a group of really young learners, like 6, 7-year-olds. And on one of my first days, they asked me, ¿Dónde están los estuches? Okay, and I was like, an estuche? What is an estuche? And yeah, I discovered that it was a pencil case. And to be honest, this shocked me because I thought, okay, in Irish, I know that word, it's Kospian Louis. In German, I know that word, it's Mäppchen. It's quite a basic word, how do I not know it? And that made me think that, of course, I started learning Spanish at a later age, at 19, where perhaps learning classroom vocabulary, the basics that you would learn. Obviously, I'd learned Irish starting at the age of 5. It was very important to know your classroom vocabulary. The same with German at the age of 10, again, classroom-oriented learning. And therefore I had this gap in my knowledge in Spanish. So I had to kind of focus a lot. And there were more instances in that classroom setting. I had students, again, in the first couple of days saying, "Teacher, no tengo punta." And again, I was directly translating this to, "You don't have a point, I don't understand." And what they were saying was that their pencils weren't sharp. So by saying that, they basically wanted to go to the bin to sharpen their pencil. They were saying "tengo mocos." Again, I was like, what are those? I have snots. Again, it's not something maybe that someone would say to you directly, but in that setting, working with 6 and 7-year-olds, this was the language that I needed to focus on. So I think if you can look at your life and think, right, what do I need English for? Like at a very, very basic level. For work, perhaps, for talking about your hobbies, your interests, maybe even for reading a particular genre of book, for watching a particular type of documentary. For instance, I'm extremely interested in crime, in kind of real life detective stuff. And when I watch that in other languages, of course, it's important that I know that range of vocabulary. And I mean, very similarly, if you are studying for an exam, it's not difficult to look up the common topics, the common themes that are coming up again and again. I've spoken so much on my channel about, preparing for proficiency, etc., where you have this overwhelming feeling of, I need to know so much vocabulary for this exam. But at the end of the day, you can still categorize topics that are coming up. Like, you need to know vocabulary to talk about the environment, about technology, about healthcare, and these should be your priorities when learning a language. Now, I've done videos previously on new words that have come into the dictionary. I think these videos, or should I say this kind of language learning, is really exciting and interesting, but it might not be your top priority. However, IELTS have recently released a list of 100 new words that have entered the dictionary, which they will be kind of including in their exam papers from now on. Now, this is something that if you, as a potential IELTS candidate, are looking at, well, what kind of vocabulary should I be learning? I mean, the commission, the exam board have literally handed you this list of, well, here are 100 new words which, we're going to be including them. So from my perspective, if you are an IELTS candidate, this is a go-to list. This is like a priority list which you should be learning from. So yeah, I think figure out the key areas of your life where you need to know language and focus primarily on those. That would be my first piece of advice. Okay, so the next point I would like to make is not to overthink the synonyms. If, for instance, you look up the adjective drunk on Merriam-Webster's website, you will find 169 synonyms. Now that is wild. I've had a look at the list, and while I'm not even familiar myself with some of the synonyms, there are others there that I'm like, oh, I wouldn't really use that, etc. And I'm going to give you an example. One of the words on that list, a synonym of drunk, is langers. Okay, he went out last night and he got langers, or he was langers. Now that made me laugh quite a lot because this is a piece of vocabulary that is specific to Cork in the south of Ireland. I mean, I'm from very close to Cork. I'm from Waterford, and in Waterford, like, that's not a word we would use to say we are drunk, but when people use that word, we'd say, oh, he's from Cork or she's from Cork. So do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's a case of people look for synonyms online, think, oh, that sounds really nice, and learn it, and actually perhaps in your context, in your cultural context, or wherever you're living, it's not maybe necessarily the most appropriate word to use. So of course, I mean, that said, it is easiest to learn vocabulary in the context of maybe your geographical location. So for instance, in Scotland, in Edinburgh, a lot of people, they won't say I was drunk, they say I was steaming. And again, a lot of people, they don't know that word, of course, until they come to Scotland, because it's a word that is so typically used here. I would, again, not use that word with my Irish friends or with friends from other countries because they might not know what I meant. So again, don't overthink the synonyms. If you are in an English-speaking country, I mean, it's fantastic because you can pick up language and vocabulary and you kind of get to know more of a cultural context, but don't worry about learning synonyms without knowing the cultural context of them. Now, if you can ask a native speaker, amazing. If you can ask in a forum, that's probably the next best thing. There are a lot of Facebook groups, particularly for English language learners at different levels, so you can ask in those groups. And that said, I would also say, don't focus on negativity in these groups, because I've seen previously people asking questions about vocabulary, grammar, etc. And, responses like, oh, if you don't know that word, you shouldn't even be in this group. And it's kind of like, really, people don't use that word every single day. So what I'm trying to say in this point is, don't worry too much about having a huge range of vocabulary, even for your exams, even at proficiency level, because when you open that paper, I can 100% guarantee that you are not going to know all of the words in your exam paper. And once you've kind of freed yourself from that burden of, I need to know every single word, in the world before I can become a native like speaker. Absolutely not. Not true. Just focus on what you need to know in your life and in your cultural context. So don't panic when it comes to synonyms. Now, in the next portion of this video, I would like to talk about, well, how can you actually learn and retain this vocabulary? And I think something that is absolutely crucial to begin with is to know what type of learner you are. Are you an audio learner? Do you learn best from listening? Are you more of a visual learner? Do you need to write? Do you need to do something with the language? And I think that's really important. I myself benefited massively from writing down vocabulary, making sentences with my new vocabulary, because I really needed to see the words on the paper. I'm not the best speller, even in English, and like I said, I've been teaching English for 10 years, but it's not something that comes very naturally to me. And of course, as I said, I started learning German quite young. Typically the words in German tend to be long or longer than English, and yeah, it was a struggle. I really needed to write down the words, learn them by looking at them and be able to recognize them on paper. That was really important for me. So I think you absolutely need to know what type of learner you are before you can move forward. Once you know what kind of learner you are, then you can make a strategy as to how you're going to learn vocabulary. And again, it depends perhaps on the level that you're at or the language that you are learning, because I have actually used different techniques for different languages, and I'm going to explain some of them to you right now. One that I have always found really useful myself, and that a lot of my students use for learning particularly phrasal verbs in English, is making double-sided flashcards. So you write the phrasal verb on the outside of the card, and on the inside you actually write the definition or an example sentence, etc. Cut them all up and put a bundle next to basically a high traffic area in your house, so somewhere you're going to be passing in and out quite a lot, your front door, your bedroom door, etc. And every time you come in or out, take a card. You've got the phrasal verb, for example, look after, and you say, okay, look after is to take care of someone. For example, I looked after my nephew while my sister went shopping. Okay, and you check, and yes, you've got that one right, perfect. You put it to one side, and then if you don't get it right, you put it back down to the bottom of the pile so that you can recycle it, and you're seeing it quite a lot. So particularly for visual learners like myself, as I said, this can be something really good. So all different types of flashcards can work extremely well. Netflix, any kind of documentaries like on Disney Plus, all of these platforms, YouTube, everywhere, where you can watch with subtitles is fantastic, because again, if you are a visual learner, you can actually see the vocabulary in front of you, and of course if you are an audio learner, it's fantastic for you to be able to listen to the vocabulary. One of the, I would say, strongest students that I ever had in throughout my whole career, who actually took the C1 and C2 exams with me, went on, did her CELTA, became an English language teacher. She's currently teaching English in her home country. I asked her, how have you gotten to this level where you're sounding like near native, you have a wide range of vocabulary, etc. And she said that she used to watch videos, documentaries, etc. with the subtitles on, and when she would come across an interesting word, she would pause, write down the whole sentence so that she would have the context of the word, rewind back and actually listen to the whole sentence, the intonation of the sentence, the word stress, everything, and practice saying that out loud again. And she commented that, of course, it was a very time-consuming method, but it absolutely paid off. And again, that's something really interesting. You really need to put vocabulary into context. Now, some people, like that student, love kind of natural context coming from films, documentaries, etc. Other people really like to try to put the vocabulary into context of their own lives so that it will be more relatable for them. But yeah, either way, I think that that's a really good method. And of course, for all of the audio learners as well, you can record yourself saying the vocabulary onto your phone, play it back. You can ask, which is what I do with a lot of my students. They send me vocabulary and things like that and say, how exactly do you say that? Or I record it so they can hear me saying it. We send these on WhatsApp, which is obviously very convenient and easy to use. So yeah, there are lots of things like that you can do in order to improve your vocabulary if you are maybe a more audio focused learner as well. But anyway, to kind of sum up, what I would say is that you need to basically let go of this idea that you need to know a certain number of words in order to be a super efficient speaker of English, because we go through different stages of our lives in which different themes and vocabulary is more important to us. I am a new mum, a lot of my friends are getting married, buying property, things like that. I realized the other day that I know the word mortgage in Spanish, hipoteca, and I don't know that word in Irish or in German because I've never had to use that word. I was never sort of speaking in those contexts with friends. And so don't kind of punish yourself for not knowing particular pieces of vocabulary, but do look for the gaps and fill them in as you go. Write them down, send yourself voice notes, and there are lots of ways that you can do it. So if you have found this video useful, which I hope you have, please leave a like or a comment. It's really useful in kind of getting these videos out to a wider audience, and of course it makes me realize that, well, this is an area that you are interested in and I can make more videos like this. If you would like to know anything else about my own language learning processes with Irish, German or Spanish, you can also leave a comment below. And yeah, that's it from me. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.